My name is Vicky Turner. I'm 32 years old, and the night my family finally made it clear I was an embarrassment. I was still the one paying for the party. Dad's text came in at 7:14 a.m., right as my coffee machine sputtered out its last tired hiss. You're not welcome at Mom's birthday. The family thinks you've become an embarrassment. No good morning, no explanation, just that. For a full 5 seconds, I honestly thought he'd sent it to the wrong person. My thumb hovered over the screen, waiting for the inevitable follow-up. Oops, wrong Vicky. Or, you know I'm joking. Instead, a notification dropped down over the top of his message. Kelsey, about time. She'd replied in the family group chat, a little thumbs up emoji, then those two words, about time. Like this was a vote they'd all been waiting to cast. I don't remember sitting down, but suddenly I was at my tiny kitchen table, coffee untouched, morning light cutting across the laminate like an interrogation lamp. My heart didn't even speed up. It just sank, lower than I thought it could go. I typed, so the family votes with my money now, then deleted it. I typed, wow, then deleted that too. What I finally sent was nothing. I locked my phone, pushed it face down, and stared at the ceiling. It wasn't like this came out of nowhere. My relationship with my family had always been strained, just not in the dramatic movie kind of way. No slammed doors, no screaming matches that neighbors overheard. Our specialty was quiet disapproval dressed up as good manners. Polite criticism, polite judgment, polite reminders that I never quite fit the Turner mold. I was the daughter who moved out too early, the one who stopped going to church, the one who chose a career in finance instead of joining the Turner legacy in real estate, the one who stayed single, had no kids, and worst of all, didn't seem the least bit sorry about any of it. I'd had a boyfriend once, Daniel. Sweet, steady, the kind of man my mom claimed to want for me. But the moment she realized he supported my independence instead of steering me back toward the family business, she cooled. Nice guy, she'd said, lips tight. Shame he doesn't seem very ambitious about the future. Ambitious in my family meant useful to us. There wasn't one big explosion that broke us. It was years of tiny fractures. Like when I told Dad I'd bought my first condo and instead of congratulations, he asked, is it at least in a decent area? Then followed up with a long lecture about how he could have gotten me a better deal if I'd gone through Turner Realty. Or when Kelsey pulled $2,000 from my account by accident, using the shared emergency card, and everyone treated it like a silly oopsie. She was stressed about finals, Mom said. It happens. The money never made its way back to me. Or the time I flew Mom to New York for her birthday. I booked the hotel, the flights, the Broadway tickets, front row, because she loved the music. She smiled, took photos, clapped until her hands hurt. Then she came home and told people I'd done it because I was lonely and regretting my life choices. Oh, she's realizing she should have settled down by now, Mom had told Aunt Lana over the phone. This is her way of filling the emptiness. I only knew because Aunt Lana told me. With sympathy, like it was a compliment. So no, we weren't close, but I kept showing up out of habit and guilt and that tiny, stupid hope that maybe this time would be different. Guilt that maybe I was the one being distant, that maybe I was too proud. That guilt is why I paid the deposit for Mom's birthday party in the first place. It was supposed to be a surprise. Rooftop restaurant, open bar, live jazz, full catering, the kind of night she'd brag about to her church friends for the next decade. They picked the date and I took care of everything. Because you're good with that stuff, Vicky. Dad didn't offer to split the costs. Kelsey definitely didn't. But I went along with it like I always did. A reliable little account number in lipstick and heels. And then, that text. You're not welcome at Mom's birthday. The family thinks you've become an embarrassment. I picked my phone back up, read it again, then opened Facebook. Dad had posted about the party days ago. Flowers, view, the usual performative nonsense. Kelsey had commented, finally, under a picture of a centerpiece mock-up. They'd planned all of this without me, using my money, and then uninvited me when the performance didn't match the image they wanted. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I didn't even get angry. Instead, I slid my laptop out of my bag, opened it, and started working. What they never understood was that being good with numbers isn't just a personality quirk. It's leverage, quiet power, the kind you don't notice until it's gone. Within 10 minutes, I'd pulled up the venue contract. By 30, the jazz trio's booking agreement. By 45, the catering invoice. Within an hour and a half, the rooftop venue was canceled. The band released. The catering refunded, minus a cancellation fee that made my stomach twist, but I paid it anyway. The payment hadn't come from Dad's card. It had come from mine. Then I logged into the Turner Family Trust portal. When Grandpa had set it up, he'd put both Dad and me as managers. He trusted Dad's charisma and my spreadsheets. What he never anticipated was how often charisma tried to override math. Over the years, Dad had grown lazy. He let me handle the boring parts: allocations, monitoring, compliance. Somewhere along the line, the bank started calling me first instead of him. Dad thought that made me his assistant. Legally, it made me something else. I locked the trust. No more transfers without dual signatures. Then I flagged Dad's favorite credit card for review. Too many business dinners that looked suspiciously like nights out with his buddies. I closed the side account Kelsey had been using as her personal ATM, the one labeled Turner Emergency, that only ever seemed to fund her coffee, skincare, and unpaid rent. The emergency had finally arrived. It just wasn't the one they expected. Then I went to work like nothing had happened. I sat through meetings, answered emails, smiled when my boss complimented a report. Every once in a while, my phone buzzed on my desk, but I didn't flip it over. By the time I got home that night, the coffee cup from that morning was still sitting on my table, untouched, cold. I took one sip and grimaced. 4 days passed in silence. No passive-aggressive memes from Kelsey. No, we need to talk from Dad. Not even a guilt-soaked text from Mom. The absence of noise was almost louder than the chaos I'd expected. On Friday night, Daniel texted, "You okay? You've been quiet." I stared at the screen for a long moment, thumb hovering. I could have told him everything: how my family had effectively disowned me from a party I was paying for, how I'd finally yanked away the financial safety net they didn't even bother to pretend to appreciate, how a part of me felt powerful, and another part felt like a little girl being told to sit outside and be quiet. Instead, I typed, "Busy week, I'll call you later," and hit send. Because that was the other thing about growing up in the Turner family. You learn early that feelings are what you keep to yourself, and financial support is how you earn your seat at the table. By Sunday morning, 9:02 a.m., the silence finally shattered. My phone lit up with missed calls. Mom, Dad, 2 uncles, a cousin I hadn't heard from since 2019. Voicemails stacked on top of each other. The family group chat, dormant for days, suddenly looked like it had exploded. Why was the venue canceled? Why did the refund go through? Where did the money go, Vicky? I stared at the screen, breathing slowly, the tiniest smile tugging at the corner of my mouth. They still thought this was about a birthday party. It wasn't. The party was just the trigger. The real fallout was still coming, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one bracing to catch everyone else when they fell. 4 days. That's how long it took for the calls to start. The silence didn't last long enough to feel like a relief, just a suffocating weight hanging in the air. When the phone finally started ringing, I let it ring. And ring. The first call was from Mom. I didn't pick it up. I hadn't been ready to face her. Not yet. I wasn't sure if it was guilt or confusion in her voice when she left a message, but it was there, hiding underneath the usual pleasant tone. "Vicky, honey, we need to talk. Call me when you get a chance, please." I didn't call. The next few hours were spent pretending like nothing had changed. I focused on work, as usual, buried myself in spreadsheets, meetings, answering emails with the same kind of detachment I always had. The calls kept coming, each one more insistent, more urgent. Uncles, cousins, even distant relatives who hadn't spoken to me in years began to flood my voicemail. There was nothing accusatory at first, just confusion. What happened? Why the venue? Where did the money go? But it didn't take long before the tone shifted. By the afternoon, Dad left a message. "Vicky, you need to fix this. You've embarrassed the family enough. This is getting out of hand. Call me. We'll handle this quietly, like we always do." It was almost laughable how he assumed he could still dictate the terms after all of this. The man who used to sit in his leather chair, giving me those judgmental glances when I stepped out of line, thinking he had me in the palm of his hand. I let his voicemail sit, unread, unanswered. His tone still echoed in my mind, the same one he used when he told me I wasn't cut out for the family business. His disappointment had always been a sword hanging over me. But now, it didn't matter. I had given them everything, my time, my money, my silence, and now they wanted to pretend that none of it was enough. By Sunday morning, it wasn't just my dad and my relatives calling. Kelsey texted me 6 times in a row. "Kelsey, did you cancel the party? What is wrong with you?" She didn't even try to hide her fury. Her messages quickly descended into emotional manipulation. Kelsey, you don't care about anyone, do you? This is just like you, making everything about you. We were just joking, you know. Kelsey, come on, it's not even about the party. Why do you have to ruin everything? It was textbook Kelsey. She always knew how to make everything seem like my fault, even when I wasn't the one who had caused the problem. Like I was the one who'd been inconsiderate, who'd misunderstood. There was the deflection. It's not about you. And then the classic, you need help. I didn't even open that one. I just watched it pop up and fade away. I knew what she was doing. This wasn't a cry for reconciliation. It was a plea for attention, something to turn the narrative back in her favor. At that moment, I realized something I'd missed before. Kelsey had never seen me as a person. To her, I had always been a tool, someone to fix things, to fund things, to make her life easier without asking for anything in return. I wasn't just the outsider in the family. I was the provider, the one who always fixed things when they broke, the one who made everyone feel comfortable without ever making waves. But now I wasn't fixing things, I wasn't giving. And the family was unraveling because of it. For the first time, I allowed myself to feel something more than indifference. I wasn't angry. No, it was deeper than that. I was tired. Tired of being the only one who cared enough to pick up the pieces. I'd spent years working to build something for myself, only to have it used against me. They had expected me to come crawling back to fix it all, again, but this time I wasn't going to. The calls didn't stop. They just grew more desperate. By the time I finished work on Monday, the voicemail inbox was overflowing. Some of the messages were from distant relatives who had always been nice to me, but now they seemed to be on the side of my parents. Everyone was trying to make me feel guilty. I didn't respond. I didn't even acknowledge them. I was done. Instead, I pulled up the trust documents again. This time, it wasn't about just the trust. It was about securing myself, about protecting what was mine. I called my attorney that afternoon. I need to make a few changes, I said, my voice steady despite the chaos that felt like it was creeping into every part of my life. 4 days later, the family was in full crisis mode. I could almost hear the panic in their voices through the phone. The venue had been rebooked, the catering rearranged, and the jazz band moved on to other gigs. It was almost poetic. Their world was spinning out of control, and I had pulled every string that made it run. The calls only got louder. Dad's email came first. This is getting ridiculous, Vicky. Let's not blow this out of proportion. We're family. Then came Kelsey's text. Are you seriously going to ruin everything? I need your help, Vicky. I can't fix this. This is all your fault. It was laughable, how she could still try to put the blame on me after everything. Like nothing had changed, like I was still the person who showed up and saved the day. The thing was, I wasn't that person anymore, and now they would have to learn how to deal with the consequences of that. I sat back in my chair and stared at my phone. There were so many missed calls, so many messages begging for my attention. But the truth was, I didn't need to respond anymore. I had already taken the power back. The silence that followed wasn't just peaceful, it was final. By Friday morning, the situation had gone from chaos to full-blown collapse. Kelsey woke up to find her checking account empty, her credit card declined, and her phone buzzing with payment failure alerts. She called me 5 times back to back. I watched the phone light up on my desk and let every call go to voicemail. The 6th call came from a blocked number. I didn't need caller ID to know it was her. I still didn't answer. A moment later, a text appeared. Kelsey, what did you do? Funny. All I had done was finally stop funding my own humiliation. She was the one who had spent beyond her means, assuming, no, expecting, that I would keep refilling the accounts like always. Her spiral escalated quickly. By noon, she sent me a Venmo request for $1,400 with the note, "Rent, please." It was unbelievable how easily she slipped into entitlement, as if the last week of insulting me had never happened, as if she hadn't applauded when Dad cut me off, as if I hadn't been the one quietly paying her rent for 6 months. I stared at the request for a full minute, then I hit decline. An hour later, she tried again. 3 more calls, one from a burner number, and finally a voicemail where she cried, rambled, and insisted she was practically homeless. I deleted it without listening to the end. The irony of being called an embarrassment by someone who couldn't buy shampoo without a bailout wasn't lost on me. I thought it would end there, but no. The extended family joined the circus. 3 aunts, 2 cousins, and one of Dad's golf buddies all sent messages dripping with polite concern. Could I reconsider canceling the party? Would I at least refund the decorations and favors? Did I understand that people had made plans? People, in this case, meant my cousins who were hoping to use the open bar to network. I ignored every message. They wanted to treat me like I didn't matter. Fine. Let them feel what life was like without me. On Sunday morning, a series of hard knocks echoed through my apartment hallway. Slow at first, then faster, then furious. Dad. No warning, no call, just him, outside my door. "Vicky, open this door. We need to talk." His voice was sharp, indignant, the same tone he used when I was a teenager coming home 1 minute late. I didn't move. "You think you can pull this stunt and get away with it? You're being ungrateful after everything this family has done for you. You owe your mother an apology." Ungrateful. That word always came out of his mouth like a hammer, like he was daring me to challenge his version of the world. I stayed still behind the door, breathing carefully, feeling old wounds and new ones overlap. Then he said something that made my stomach twist. "She's not doing well, Vicky. She's stressed. You're making her sick." There it was, the Turner family's favorite weapon. Guilt. He stayed out there for 10 long minutes, knocked, pounded, muttered. Then, slowly, his footsteps faded down the hall. I didn't open the door. On Monday afternoon, the phone rang again. This time it was the bank. The advisor's voice was polite, almost apologetic. "There was an attempted transfer," he said, "a significant amount from the Turner Family Trust into a new account under your father's name. It required dual authorization. We flagged it as unauthorized." My fingers tightened around the phone. Dad hadn't just wanted me gone from the birthday party. He wanted my authority gone. He wanted my power gone. He wanted control of everything I had built and protected. This was never about a dinner. This was about money, about dominance, about erasing the one thing he could never bend, my independence. I hung up with the bank and immediately called my attorney. "We need to dissolve every shared account," I said, voice steady, "and restructure the trust." "Under what terms?" he asked. "I want full management," I replied, "complete control, and airtight legal protection." There was a pause. "Your mother?" he asked gently. My heart twisted, but not enough to sway me. "She stays safe," I said. "She just doesn't need to be financially tied to them anymore." He understood. "I'll draft the documents." By the next morning, everything would be locked down, permanently. That night, while I ate dinner in silence, Kelsey posted another melodramatic Instagram story. Her crying in her car, mascara streaked, spooning ice cream directly from the tub. Her caption, "Betrayed by my own blood." The comments poured in. "You're so strong. Family can be so toxic. You deserve better." She played the victim beautifully. She always had. I didn't finish watching. What mattered wasn't her performance. It was what happened next. At 3:12 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Come to the house Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Everyone will be here, please." I froze. Everyone? As in, all of them? The same people who had voted me out like I was a defective appliance? I read the message again, slower this time. Her wording was different. No guilt, no pressure, no emotional landmine disguised as a mother's concern. Just a request. And something about it, something quiet, something trembling, felt like a shift in the air. I didn't reply, not yet. But I knew I'd go. Not for Dad, not for Kelsey. For the truth. For the confrontation that had been 15 years overdue. For the moment everything would finally break wide open. When Wednesday night came, I sat in my car in front of my parents' house for a full minute before stepping out. The driveway was packed. Cars I recognized. Cars I hadn't seen in years. Even Uncle Russ's old pickup truck, the one that had been unofficially banned from family gatherings since the Christmas incident of 2016. Whatever this was, it wasn't small. The porch light glowed warm against the dusk. The windows flickered with soft yellow from inside. It looked peaceful. Deceptively peaceful. The kind of peace that only exists right before the air cracks open. I walked inside. The smell hit me first. Real food, homemade, not catered, not showy. Mom's cooking. The kind she usually reserved for holidays when she still tried to keep everyone pretending. The living room was cleaner than I remembered. No clutter, no tension humming under the surface. For a moment, it almost felt like the mother I used to look up to was the one who'd planned this. Mom stood in the kitchen doorway when I walked in. No hug, no smile, just a small, tired nod. "I told them this would happen," she said quietly. "They didn't listen." She turned and walked ahead of me into the living room. I followed. The room stopped buzzing when we entered. Dad was slumped on the couch, half a drink already gone, eyes sharp, even in his drunken haze. Kelsey sat beside him, arms wrapped around herself, mascara smeared like she'd been crying for hours, or performing that she had been. Aunts, cousins, and the uninvited Uncle Russ hovered around the edges, all pretending they weren't here to witness a spectacle. Dad stood up the moment he saw me. "So you decided to show up," he slurred, "after everything you've done." Mom didn't even let him finish. She stepped between us, something she had never, not once, done before. "Sit down," she said. Her voice wasn't loud, but the room froze around it. Dad blinked, confused, offended, but he sat. Mom stepped into the center of the room like it was a stage she'd been avoiding her whole life. "Everyone, shut up!" The silence was instant. I felt something tighten in my throat. Not fear, not anger, something closer to disbelief. I'd never seen her take control like this. Not when Dad insulted me. Not when Kelsey stole from me. Not when relatives whispered behind my back at gatherings. But here she was, cutting through the noise like a blade. "Vicky paid for this party twice," Mom said. "Once with money, and once with silence." She scanned the room, eyes landing on each person like she was counting them. "And all of you, every single one of you, made your choices. Now you can live with the consequences." Dad scoffed. "She's ruining this family." Mom snatched the glass out of his hand and poured it down the kitchen sink without looking away from him. The entire room gasped. Kelsey bolted upright. "Mom, what are you doing?" Mom turned to her. "You've had a year to grow up. I'm tired." There it was, 2 sentences that landed harder than any slap. Kelsey froze, mouth half open, like someone had unplugged her. I didn't breathe. The room didn't breathe. Dad tried again. "Linda, stop this!" Mom snapped. "You stop. You've done enough." Her voice cracked on that last word, but she didn't back down. Not this time. She looked at me then, and for once, Mom didn't look disappointed, or ashamed, or calculating. She looked heartbroken and determined. "Vicky," she said softly, "I'm sorry." My throat tightened, because hearing her say it, finally, was like pulling a splinter I'd lived with for years. But before I could speak, Dad lurched to his feet again, pointing at me like I was a crime scene. "You think money makes you right?" he shouted. "You think you can walk around acting superior?" "Bill," Mom warned. He didn't stop. "You're not special, Vicky. You're a calculator with an attitude." The room recoiled. Something inside me snapped clean in half. I didn't plan what happened next. I didn't think. I just walked into the kitchen, grabbed the ladle out of the pot Mom had simmering on the stove, turned around, and threw a scoop of steaming soup straight at Dad. It hit him square in the chest with a wet, burning splatter. The room erupted, gasping, shouting, chairs scraping, but all I heard was my own exhale. A long, shaky, liberating exhale. I set the ladle down, picked up my coat, and walked out. No one stopped me, not even Mom. For the first time in years, the weight I left behind didn't follow me out the door. It stayed in that house, with the people who had built it. Outside, the night air was cold against my skin, but it felt good, real, mine. I didn't look back. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty for leaving them behind. Stop. The days after the dinner felt strangely hollow. Not peaceful, just still. Like the world had been holding its breath for a long time and finally exhaled. No calls, no texts, not even a passive-aggressive quote post from Kelsey. Silence spread through my life like fog, settling into every corner, and for once, I didn't chase it away. I let it sit. I let myself sit. On the 3rd night, I found myself scrolling absently through Facebook. I wasn't looking for anything. Maybe I just wanted to see something familiar that didn't hurt. Then I saw it. Mom had posted photos. Not posed photos. Not the Turner family brand, TM pictures Dad usually forced her to upload. These were simple, blurry snapshots from the dinner. String lights, mismatched plates, the homemade food, someone laughing in the background. I was in one of them, still holding my coat, caught in that moment right before I walked out. Dad didn't appear in a single picture. Kelsey didn't either. It wasn't an accident. Mom hadn't taken their side. She had taken a side for the first time. 2 days after that, an unknown number called me. I let it go to voicemail. Old habits. When I listened to the message, my chest tightened. It was Mom. "Vicky, I'm coming over tomorrow around 5. I'll bring something for dinner." That was it. No guilt, no begging, no emotional bait. Just a choice. A simple choice she made on her own. The next day, around 4:55 p.m., I caught myself wiping down the counter, checking the table, washing my hands, nervous in a way I hadn't been in years. When the doorbell rang, Mom stood there with a plain brown paper bag. No makeup, no performance, just her. It's the soup, she said, lifting the bag slightly. I made extra. She walked in without waiting for permission, but not in the old, entitled way. Just gently, like someone stepping onto unfamiliar ground. We sat across from each other at my small table. The soup was warm, comforting, flavored with something I couldn't place, something familiar from childhood. We ate in silence for a while. Real silence. Not the tense kind that waits for someone to explode. Halfway through the bowl, Mom set down her spoon. I should have stopped him, she said. Just like that. No preamble, no excuses. She didn't cry. She didn't try to soften it. She just let the truth land between us. Then everything poured out. How Dad had been shifting money from the trust for months. How Kelsey had faked her degree to keep the school expenses flowing. How Mom had seen all of it, all the signs, but had been too tired or too afraid to intervene. When he sent you that text, she said softly, I told him not to. I told him it was cruel, but I didn't stop him either. That part hurt. It hurt deeply, because it felt like an old wound being acknowledged for the first time. She didn't ask me to forgive her. She didn't imply I'd exaggerated. She didn't say but, or I was just trying to... She took responsibility. That alone made the moment feel real. When we were finished, she stood and picked up her coat. I left him, she said, 2 days ago. I didn't move out of the house. You know he'd make that messy. I just left. I stared at her. She didn't flinch. I'm staying with your aunt for now. I'm working part-time at Lana's flower shop, listening to the radio, learning how to breathe again. She walked to the door, then looked back at me. I just wanted to say this to you face to face. She left without waiting for a response. The door closed softly behind her. For a long time, I sat there, staring at the empty bowl in front of me. The silence in my apartment felt different now. Not heavy, not sad. Just quiet. A quiet that didn't demand anything from me. A quiet I wasn't afraid of anymore. Over the next few days, things settled into a strange new rhythm. Dad stayed silent. Not surprising. His empire had cracked in half, and he needed someone to blame. Kelsey vanished from social media. Her last post was still the dramatic car crying video. She hadn't posted anything since. Aunt Lana texted me once, telling me Mom was safe, eating, sleeping, slowly unlearning the world Dad built around her. Daniel checked in too, more often now. Thinking of you, he'd say. Here, if you want to talk. I wasn't ready, not yet, but I didn't push him away. Not this time. Then one morning, Mom texted again. Want tea? Just those 2 words. No explanation, no expectation. I told her to come anytime. She showed up that afternoon with a small tin of loose-leaf tea and that same gentle tiredness in her eyes. We didn't talk about the family. We didn't talk about the trust. We didn't even mention the dinner. We just sat, sipping tea in the quiet. For the first time, it felt like we were building something. Not mending something broken, not pretending something wasn't broken, but building something new. When she left, I cleaned up the cups, set them on the drying rack, and looked around my apartment. It didn't feel like a waiting room anymore. It felt like mine, my space, my life. No more buying my way into acceptance. No more funding my own humiliation. No more shrinking to fit the Turner family mold. The truth wasn't that I'd broken the family. The truth was that I just saw the cracks first. And once you stop apologizing for who you are, once you stop paying for the privilege of being tolerated, you realize how much room you actually have to live. I'm still filling that space, finally, on my own terms.